Europe has many problems. Unemployment is constantly on the rise. It's even worse for youth unemployment. Many countries have an enormous debt burden. The people are shouting their displeasure in the streets. All of Europe has many problems? No, one country is thriving. This country is Switzerland. Lowest unemployment, lowest youth unemployment, stable state finances, greatest prosperity, highest salaries, greatest life satisfaction. Why is this? Because Switzerland is not in the EU. Because the Swiss people can still decide freely and independently about their politics, and the EU can't interfere. The Swiss people know that they owe their freedom and independence to direct democracy. This is why the Swiss voters have repeatedly refused to give up their freedom and self-determination. 1992. A majority of the people and the cantons say no to membership of the European Economic Area. 2001. 76% of the people and all cantons say no to membership of the EU. According to a recent ETH study, currently 84% of all Swiss are against joining the EU. But there are still many politicians in our country who want to force us to join the EU. Why do they want to be part of the EU? Because they abhor direct democracy and the self-determination of the Swiss people. They want more power for themselves and less for the people, so that they alone can decide what happens in Switzerland. This is how the EU works. In the EU, the people don't have any say. A few EU commissioners in Brussels that haven't even been elected decide what will happen. They don't have to justify themselves to anyone and can even determine their own salaries. They have big receptions and drink champagne at the cost of the taxpayers. Brussels wants ever more power so that the EU politicians can become even more powerful. Soon, the national parliaments will no longer have any say, nor will the people. This is why many of our politicians want to join the EU. They want to take the decisions affecting the people, earn lots of money, and drink champagne. But the federal councillors and politicians know very well the Swiss people won't agree to EU membership. This is why they want to force our country into the EU on the sly. The latest trick is called EU Framework Agreement. But what does this framework agreement mean? Switzerland must adopt all EU legislation, implemented or to be implemented by Brussels without any say. Also, disputes between Switzerland and the EU are decided by the EU court. The Swiss people have no say. This is like a football team bringing along their own referee. In other words, the EU Framework Agreement is a contract of submission. Our country becomes a de facto EU member without any referendum. We have to take over all EU laws automatically. The Federal Council says dynamically. Foreign EU judges decide about our country. Our own citizens no longer have any say. If we do not follow the EU's laws, the EU can impose sanctions against our country. Our Federal Council calls these compensatory measures. If the agreement is adopted, Switzerland will no longer be a free and independent country taking its own decisions. What can you do to prevent this? Make sure today that Switzerland remains independent. Join the Committee against a Stealthy EU Accession. Support the fight against the contract of submission. And share this video with others so that our country can still be free, independent, and successful tomorrow.